To be praised. A good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen of Clog TV, the very, very cherished viewers. We are welcoming you to the Koko Digest Morning Show. We are live here on Clog TV as always, and we're coming to you live from the studios of Clog TV here in the ministries. You can also catch us on GoTV channel 184, and if you're not in the comfort of your home, you can join us via social media on Facebook and on YouTube. Just search for Clog TV GH, and then like, share, and subscribe to our pages and join in the live stream. Now, here's what to expect on the Koko Digest Morning Show today. As on the online and print segments, we're going to be talking about, a woman who is very, very distraught. Her husband is a cocoa farmer and she's threatening to divorce him because, Galamseyers want to buy the land and he's refusing to sell the cocoa farmland. We're also going to be talking about the decrease in fire outbreaks in the first quarter of this year, and we're going to be speaking with the PRO of the Ghana National Fire Service. Then also on the lifestyle segments, we're going to be talking about some of the conditions, some of the human conditions that tend to alter the journeys of our lives. And we're going to be talking about the colostomy or a colostomy, what it is, and, just learn a little more about it. As we did last week, we learned about throat cancer. This is something that a lot of people are not very aware of. Then also on the main segments, we're going to be talking about child labor and why it still persists in Ghana. We're going to be speaking to officials from STRAJ, the Labor Department, and also the project manager of a non-governmental organization that tends to help children as well. So this is a very power-packed day, as you can tell, and also the sports and business segments will be bringing us news as always. So, of course, I would entreat us all to stay tuned for that. But for now, let us get prepared to be motivated. As the weekend approaches, we would want to motivate ourselves, give ourselves something to think about as we go and get some rest for the week. And today's quote is by Oscar Wilde, and he says, "To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people exist, and that is all." To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people exist, and that's all. And Oscar Wilde is just capturing something that is quite unsettling, but deeply truthful about the human condition. Being alive is not the same as truly living. On the surface, existence is automatic. We wake up, we go through our routines, we meet our obligations, move from one day on to the next. But Oscar Wilde suggests that this kind of life, driven by habit and expectation, is actually the norm rather than the exception. To exist, in his sense, is to operate on autopilot, guided by fear, social pressure, or comfort. It's a life where choices are safe, emotions are muted, and curiosity is suppressed. Now, people avoid risks, or people in this state tend to avoid risks. They may be present, physically, but they are not fully engaged in their own lives. They also tend to silence their desires, often postpone fulfillment for a future that never quite arrives. By contrast, to live is a rare experience because it requires intention and courage. It means being awake to your own experiences, feeling deeply, thinking independently, and acting in alignment with what genuinely matters to you. Now, living involves embracing uncertainty, pursuing meaning rather than mere security, allowing yourself to grow through both joy and discomfort. It is not necessarily about constant happiness, but about presence and authenticity. Now, Oscar Wilde's statement also carries a quiet challenge to all of us. If most people only exist, then living must be a conscious decision. It asks us to examine whether the days are shaped by choice or by default. Are you engaging with life or simply passing through it? In this way, the quote is less a criticism and more an invitation to move beyond survival and routine and toward a life that feels deliberate, vivid, and truly your own. So Oscar Wilde is charging us to live in the moment. Let us live rather than just survive. Let us live rather than just exist. Are you living or you're just existing? This is something we should ask ourselves today, and as the weekend approaches, so we can, make certain decisions about that. So this is the quote for today. I hope it carries us into next week as the weekend is right around the corner. And after this quote, we're going to be having the weather report by Peter Nsia. So please, let's stay tuned. You're welcome back to the Koko Digest Morning Show. And if you're just tuning in, it's time for the weather reports from Peter and Sia, and then we move into the online and print review. So, Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Yaya.
I hope you're well.
I'm doing very, very well. Up and grateful.
Divine selection, right? So, yes. What can we expect for the weather report for today, quickly?
As usual, today I'll say that we are following the usual pattern. In the afternoon, it's going to be very scorchy. And so, as always, GMET advises that we reduce our exposure to the sun and, carry some umbrellas with us. I'm not a doctor, though. I'm not trying to go there, but then they should take in more water.
Okay.
Yes. And then for this morning, Aflao, Accra, Kasua, Cape Coast, Krade, Aximanet environs, they are to expect partly cloudy weather this morning. And I know we are gradually transitioning into the afternoon. So by this time, when the weather is partly cloudy, it means that, visibility is somehow, deteriorated and what have you. And so for the people of Koforidua, Akimboda, Kumasi, Obuasi too should expect partly weather condition.
Okay.
And then the people of Sefi Bekwai, Goso, Sunyani, to expect there's a 40% chance of rain this morning at Goso, Sunyani, and Sefi Bekwai. But for those in the northern sector too, should expect partly cloudy weather. And then as we transition into the afternoon, the people of Accra, Koforidua, the people of Accra, Aflao, Kasua, Cape Coast should expect a sunny weather, like I rightly said, a sunny weather. And the people in the northern region too is as well sunny weather. So the weather, it is going to be scorchy throughout the country today. So basically, that is what I have for you today on the weather forecast. And then in the evening as well, those within the coastal area there's a chance of it raining in the coastal area this evening as well. But the other places remains, partly cloudy with a calm, weather condition today.
All right. Thank you so much for the weather report. So this is by GMET, verifiable information.
Yes.
Right. So quickly, let's take our word for today, and then we go into the online and print review. We'll be speaking to the PRO of the Ghana National Fire Service, as I mentioned earlier. We have recorded a decrease in the number of fire outbreaks in the first quarter of this year. So we'll be engaging with the Ghana National Fire Service to get some insights on that. Now, the word for the day is serene. So I will go through this pretty quickly. Serene. Serene is a state or quality of being calm, peaceful, and undisturbed. It often describes a quiet kind of beauty or composure, free from stress, noise, or agitation. Now, serene goes beyond simple calmness. It suggests a deep, steady tranquility, whether in a person, environment, or moment. Now, some of the words that are similar in meaning to the word serene, we have peaceful, tranquil, calm, placid, untroubled, composed, still, and restful. Then words opposite in meaning, we have agitated, turbulent, chaotic, restless, disturbed, anxious, stormy, and frenzied. So this is the word for the day. We get to use serene in our daily language. This is another addition to our vocabulary. So let's take note of that. Now, quickly into the online and print review. My co-hosts are here with me. As you've already heard Peter's voice, Bevelyn Anobil is also here with me. And we're going to be discussing, first and foremost, the drop in the recorded fire outbreaks in the first quarter of this year. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, once again.
Good morning, Area.
I hope you're well.
Yeah, doing great.
I'm also good.
I know Peter is coming to see up and good.
Divine selection, as always.
You ladies are looking sharp.
Thank you. We try. Right, so for the Ghana National Fire Service, there's a recording of about a 10% drop in the fires, as deaths and injuries have also decreased. So quickly, as I read through, we will be speaking with the division officer grade 2, Desmond Aka, very soon, and he's going to be giving us some insights on that. So the Ghana National Fire Service has reported a significant progress in fire safety and emergency response during the first quarter of 2026. Now, the service reported strong improvements across key indicators during the period. Fire outbreaks declined by 10.02%, while fatalities and injuries from fires dropped significantly by 53.5% and 62.79% respectively. Now, bushfires also reduced by 10.2%, and prank emergency calls fell by 17.8%. Meanwhile, out-on-arrival cases rose from 558 in 2025 to 651, reflecting a 32% increase. That's an indication of better public preparedness and quicker initial responses to fire before the arrival of firefighters. Additionally, the total value of properties saw a major boost, rising from 151 million and 26,471.40 Ghana cedis to 479,457,385. No, let me take that again. Sorry. So we have the major boost rising from 151,026,471.40 Ghana cedis to 479,457,385 Ghana cedis, marking a 214.47% increase. So it seems our fire outbreaks have reduced greatly. And yes, what do you think attributes to that? Is it the work of Clog TV and the Ghana National Fire Service always, sharing information and educating people on, fire safety?
Yes, I would say that kudos to the Ghana National Fire Service. They are really doing an amazing job. And this should tell us, as citizens, that this should even tell us that, yeah, they're doing their job, okay. And we are also listening to them. Our people have heard them talking about how to fight fires and everything.
Right.
They're really doing an amazing job.
Okay, so we have Mr. Desmond Aka on the line. Hello, sir. Good morning. Hello. Hello.
Can you hear me? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're well.
I'm great. Yeah, we are doing well.
Right. So quickly into the record, or this new record of a 10% drop in fire outbreaks in the first quarter of 2026. What are some of the, interventions and operational changes that the Ghana National Fire Service contributed to this 10% reduction?
So first of all, let me say a very good morning to your church viewers. It has been a year full of challenges and then hard work. If you would bear with me, you would realize that we were seeing challenges like assault, overage equipment, and then fire engines. And notwithstanding, we were able to push hard the gospel of fire safety to every nook and cranny of this country. And as a result, a section of Ghanaians have heard our message, and they have been able to put in place basic fire safety measures on their premises. And that is how come we have chalked a 10%, over 10% reduction in fire rates. In terms of property salvaged, because of our improved communication and then strategic locations of our fire engine, we were able to respond to some of these fires within record time. Most of them we did less than 5 minutes, but on the average we did a little over 8 minutes. Okay. And that is how come we were able to salvage properties worth over 470 million from the ravages of fire. And again, because of our dramatic education, the public engagement that we did, a section of Ghanaians were able to handle fire as soon as they saw them. And that is how come out-on-arrival cases increased from 24.9% in 2025 first quarter to 32% period this year. It tells us that if we are able to leverage on this kind of moment, we will be able to do more to inch up this figures to well over 60%. And that will give us the confidence that people are ready to apply or to observe basic safety on their premises. In the case of when it comes to prank calls, we also were able to let people understand that in an emergency situation, we don't need to play games. And as you continue to prank us, you contribute to the loss of life, because in an emergency situation, in as much as property could be at risk, much more importantly, lives are very much at risk. So if you delay us, you create hopes, situations for us where we tend to waste resources. We tend to kind of divert our attention to other incidents which are non-existent. It means that you are not helping us. And therefore, we dump the fact that there are consequences, and when you are caught, you may face some jail term, or you'll be fined. And that is what did the magic for us. But even though some calls reduced by over 23,000, the numbers are still huge. We did a reduction of about 300,000 to about 100,000. So it's still huge. So this brings to the fore the need for parents and guardians to ensure that they keep their phones away from their kids, and to, more importantly, teach their kids that if there is no emergency, they shouldn't take their phone and abuse that. Because what will happen is that when we get hold of you, we will not punish you, just the parent, but we will add your kid to it, so that it becomes deterrent for others to stop, who have the potential of playing pranks with our lives, to put a stop to that. Again, and because we were able to engage the public, we brought to bear the need for us not to barricade ourselves within, behind hardcore burglar proofing against a fear of burglars coming into our premises. They either to our messages, and now most of them are submitting their drawings for review before they even begin or continue with their construction. And that is what is really helping us to avert or to reduce the number of injuries and deaths recorded during fire outbreaks. So another worrying trend that we saw in the figures is the increase in road traffic accidents and associated injuries and deaths. And that is one area that we need to do much more. We need to collaborate with relevant stakeholders, especially National Road Safety Authority and Police MTT, TDLA, to ensure that we do joint campaigns to kind of run on the need for drivers to be cautious on the road, to maintain their vehicles, to avoid abusing of alcohol and other substances, and to discipline on the road, not to involve themselves in wrongful overtaking and then overspeeding and then fatigue driving. So once we're able to do this, I believe that by and large it will reduce the numbers. And then also other rescues that we also attended were also presenting a challenging risk. Very often you hear being invasion, you hear people getting entrapped within metal gratings and what have you. And we have had to respond. And this calls for capacity building of our men, of which we have started. And then also specialized equipment that would help us to be able to manage some of these incidences to the best of our ability, just to save lives and to also safeguard property. So we need, in terms of road traffic pollution, on our major high-risk, the high-risk highway, we are not too visible. Our stations are not dotted around that stretch. So even if you take from Accra to Kumasi, sometimes it only takes Amasaman to me, and then Colombo, and sometimes Koko to be able to intervene. And these are the distances within these stations or from one station to the other is very far. Sometimes it takes close to an hour for them to get to things. And that is how come we are calling for urgent retooling of the service, establishing more fire stations closer to our communities. And then, as a matter of urgency, if we are provided with rapid intervention vehicles, as many as possible, so that we can strategically locate or position some of these vehicles along our major highways and such that if there's any road crash, apart from us being in the forefront of education, in terms of response, that is where we come in. We should be the first to respond, and therefore, if it takes us more than an hour or even close to an hour to get there, it means that more lives will be at risk.
Yeah.
And if we are better resourced in that capacity or in that area, I think it will go a long way for us to be able to save more lives when these crashes. And then we are called on to respond to some of these incidents.
All right. Thank you so much. So, despite this reduction, we realize that Greater Accra, Ashanti, and then the central regions recorded the highest incidents. So, are there going to be any targeted strategies to try to tackle these particular regions?
Yeah, so if you look at the figure that we turned out, you would realize that out of the 8 different types of fires that we recorded, domestic-led, that is those ones that occur within our residential communities, that is where we have the challenge. And the reason why the major cities recorded some huge numbers that most people migrate or they move from smaller towns to these bigger cities just to find survive or to find greener pastures. And when they come, sometimes they don't have decent accommodation. They struggle to accommodate. So you realize that in the bigger cities, the slum communities are developing in every corner. And when there's fire in circle, and because of the nature of the construction, the closeness of these structures, predominantly wood and interspersed with some metal containers, and illegal wiring is rife. They do all manner of activities that increases the fire risks to them. So anytime we have fires in such communities, we struggle. And that is how come it is pushing the numbers of residential and fire types to that high levels. So we would also want to plead on the local authorities, the various assemblies, that it directly falls under their ambit to ensure that these slum communities do not develop. Because if, for nothing at all, we cannot provide decent accommodation for people, then we should ensure that even if they have to build their makeshift structures, there is proper layout, there is proper connection wiring done by competent people, so that we can also move in there and then educate them to be very safety conscious. Once we are able to do that, then technically it's going to bring down the numbers of domestic fires to the various minimum. Again, what we are doing as a service is to look for private partners who will also support us to roll out a project that we have that in Niger, where every household will be provided with a minimum fire equipment, such as smoke alarms, portable fire extinguishers, embossed or tagged by the service, so that at any point in time, if there is any fire, that will raise an alarm. And then since you have the extinguisher and you have been trained on it to use it, you will be able to intervene so that the fire will not escalate. And once we are able to achieve that, then domestic fires will naturally come down. In terms of commercial fires, that is where it also followed domestic in the second position. That is market fires and all that. Every now and then we are experiencing fires in the market. And that is how come we have also intensified our efforts in getting to the market, prepping them on the need to ensure that there is proper storage of waste. Just about 2 days ago or so, Monday or so, or either Tuesday or Monday, there was this fire in Kebbi market. had it not been an intervention.
Yeah.
And if you look at the cause of that fire, it was as a result of stockpiling the small stock with a lot of combustibles mixed with flammables. And because of the heat accumulation due to the release of certain chemical vapors, this fire erupted. And had it not been an intervention, the whole floor, that is first floor containing about 1,200 shops, would have been affected. But because of our intervention, only one shop was even affected. Even within that shop, it's just a small portion, and some fraction of the stored goods like boxes of matches, deodorant, and other goods were affected. So we need to be able to do more. Market managers will also have to be responsible. Local authorities have to convert all mixed into modern mass, such that safety measures will be adequately put in place, so that nobody will encroach on our hydrants, nobody would encroach on our water hose reels, and all the other firefighting means in such enclaves. So once we're able to deal with that, then commercial fires will also drop. In terms of bushfires, because of the advent of climate change, that one there are the components that we have control over. So the ones that we have control over, the intervention we have put in place is to have trained over 6,000 fire volunteers, and they are in touch with the farm hands, they are in touch with these plantation owners, and they are ensuring that they have built adequate fire belts around their farms and plantations, so that even if there is any wildfire threatening them, when it gets to where the fire belts are situated, the fire dies out naturally. Aside that, we are also collaborating with NGOs who are into livelihood empowerment programs, and that those who depend heavily on the natural vegetation for their survival, i.e. charcoal burners, i.e. hunters, i.e. honey harvesters, and what have you, will now be empowered with snow raising within our backyard, and scatter raising, rabbit raising, and what have you, and so that the pressure they put on the natural vegetation, which also then to set fires within our forest, within our vegetation indiscriminately, that pressure would reduce. And because of the intervention that we put in place, bushfire 5% to about 2%, and that is for me very significant. Then to the installation, we see that now quite recently ECG announced that they are changing their transformers, which are 20 years, some are even getting to 30 years. Our communities, in terms of supply, we are experiencing what we call overloading, and that is how come sometimes power to our various facilities are not that stable. So it was also because of the lack of stable power due to overloading of the circuitry, it creates fire conditions. And most of the fires that we experience, the source or the cause are electrical faults, stemming from the misuse of electricity, and then vis-a-vis the misuse of electrical appliances. So if these transformers are changed, if the wires are also changed, then it will bring some sanity. It will bring some. It will resolve the overloading aspect of the deal, and as a result, electrical induced fires would also reduce, because every now and then we are called to manage fires involving utility poles, wires, cables, substations, and even transformers. And once they are changed, it helps us to also record less number of that fires. Then vehicular followed. You would bear with me that you have seen a countless number of videos on social media where people's vehicles are set ablaze on major roads and elsewhere, where something becomes very difficult for them to intervene and then deal with the fire. Right. And that is how come we are rolling out a project that one vehicle, one embossed fire extinguisher, such that those extinguishers are certified by the Ghana National Fire Service, whereby the drivers of the vehicle owners will be trained as to how best to use these fire extinguishers, so that at any point in time when their vehicles are gutted, they would intervene so that the situation wouldn't escalate. So once we also get these RIVs, that is the rapid intervention vehicles, that will be strategically located on our major highways. Within a short time, when we get the hint of a particular fire, we should be able to respond within the first 5 minutes to contain the situation. And there are other fires that we also attend to, like crown fires that happens on treetops. We also have to deal with sometimes refuse dump fires and all that. Those fires are on the low side, but we would also want to urge the public to stop setting fires indiscriminately within our communities, such that those fires would also come down. And we are going to strengthen our institutional personnel training, such that people in hospitals, staff, personnel within radio stations, hospitals, schools, and other institutions will be reached, such that they will be trained, especially on how to intervene when there is any fire, and then how to safely evacuate the premises when there is any emergency, such that we'll be able to preserve life. So in terms of the causes, you would realize that some of these causes are preventable, and that is where we're focusing on. Once we are able to deal with about 80% of these preventable fires, then by and large, the fires would come down, and therefore expect more education from us, expect more engagement from us, expect us to target the ordinary Ghanaian, because we know that a lot of people need education. So we'll flood the social media with a lot of educational content. We would also come to an end where we also would also get some airtime to offer some pragmatic safety education to the public. And cumulatively, when we are able to do all these things, trust us that in the coming months, we should expect a more reduction, coupled with support from the general public. Because there's one thing education, and there is one thing the people that we are educating also accepting, also implementing whatever we are telling them. So we will do that alongside some level of enforcement, so that the recalcitrant one will be brought to book, like that the system will be sanitized. I mean, we'll have our peace of mind, and then get reduced cases across all the various operations that we do.
All right. Thank you so much. You have answered most of my follow-up questions at this point, so I think that I've got all we need, and this has been very insightful. Thank you so much. And again, congratulations to the Ghana National Fire Service for this very, outstanding feat. A 10% decrease is something to applaud. We hope that you keep up the good work, and we hope to see you in the studio very soon. Please have a good day.
Right. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Right.
So, it seems that people are taking the education very well. They are also practicing it, because it seems even for the time the Ghana National Fire Service would get to the place, there seems to be some control already going on, and that's actually commendable. Ghanaians are learning, and we are happy. And I hope that will go down, as you said, because it seems a lot of these fires are also preventable, and if we get more education, we'll probably be able to, sort ourselves out. So let's go into the trends, and then we can make way for the other segments.
Okay, so at this point, I would like us to fasten our seat belts and travel all the way to South Africa, because a whole lot is happening there. There's a disturbing video trending online. But before we take a look at that video, I'd like to give a small history, let's say background to the xenophobic attack in South Africa. South Africa was shaped by their colonial masters, the Dutch and then the British. During that time, there was what we call the segregation, where the whites were separated from the blacks and the other races. Regime. Yes, so that was when the apartheid regime also, came in. And so when the apartheid regime came, that was the Dutch, came first, and then the British took over. And so the apartheid era actually came to cement, the segregation aspect. And so the apartheid became law when the Dutch and the other whites, they were sort of, because after the Second World War, the black South Africans went to the cities to demand for jobs and employment and what have you. And so those white Afrikaners, they feared because those blacks would be employed on, cheap labor. And so they wanted a law to bind the blacks from, going to the cities. And so in 1948, an election was held, and a group known as the National Party, campaigned using the apartheid, saying that when they are voted into power, they are going to ensure that there is that kind of separation, that segregation. And then they were voted into power, and then that apartheid became law. And so they were, grouped into races. We had the whites, the blacks, the Indians, and what have you.
Yeah.
And so employment and job became something that was reserved for the whites. And the black South Africans were forced into a small area. So with every land where, anybody at all is located, 80% of the land was reserved for the white minority. And so these black South Africans were not able to go to certain places, certain cities and all that. So they were kept in, different places. They were isolated.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, somewhere in 1994, before 1966, the fight for freedom actually started, where some African countries, including Ghana, helped in the fight against the apartheid era in South Africa. And so somewhere in 1994, they were able to gain political freedom from those people.
Yeah.
And so after gaining they only gained political freedom, but not economic freedom. And so that unemployment, jobs, and that hardship continued. And so for some time now, the people of South Africa, they started, attacking the whites. And then they came down to the blacks as well. So in 2005, they started that. Some lives were lost. 2008, 2015, and then 2019, recently, when we saw that attack on Nigerians, and some shops were looted and destroyed and what have you. Some, experts have actually characterized this or linked this to the apartheid era, because the people have lived in an exclusionary, life, because they are, colonial masters. That's what they taught them.
Yeah.
They were separated. And so at that time, it was them versus the whites. Currently, it is about them and then the African countries. And then I actually do not blame them, because after the apartheid era, they were not taught, the history in such a way that they were not taught that some African countries, virtually all the African countries, came together to fight for their independence. And right now, instead of them blaming their government for their economic hardship, unemployment, the corruption, whatever, they are thinking that it is these foreign nationals, the Africans, who are taking over their jobs, and even to say, some are saying they are taking their wives and what have you. So once in a while, these are some of the things that happens. But I think that it defeats the idea of Pan-Africanism and African unity. Let's take a look at the video, because it's very disturbing when we come back.
Guys moving from one country to the other. It's no longer working. We don't want this as African people anymore. We are tired of seeing African migrants moving all over the world, refusing to fix your own countries. Now we're making it very clear to you guys, Utitina, we don't want you here. We want you to fix your countries. Now you came here with a traveling document. You came with a passport. You know that you are a visitor, but now you decided to come and integrate in our communities. You know very well that what you have done is wrong.
How many children do you have here?
We can come to Ghana and do what you're doing.
Passport.
Eh? Now you are carrying a bucket. It's 11 a.m. You were supposed to be fighting the government of Ghana there to ensure that they are getting things right.
No, there's no fight in Ghana. You must fight what they did.
Where's your papers?
Passport.
Passport.
Where's the passport?
Take it out.
Let me see your passport. Let me see. Luna. Okay, tell me, who's the police officer that you are bribing to certify these things for you? Baba, let me tell you, I'm not
Check the
foolish.
date.
These things, let me tell you, You know, by law, you're not supposed to certify as an immigrant. You're not allowed to certify your passport.
No.
Okay, why do you certify your passport in a foreign land?
Okay.
Let's check.
We are fixing this continent. This thing of you guys moving from one country to the other. I suspect.
Other foreign nationals from their country. And like Peter said, this is very disturbing because first and foremost, no ordinary citizen has the qualification or right to, try to verify another person's, documents. There are people trained for that. So assuming this was not recorded, what would have happened to that man? Because this is not the first time we are seeing or hearing about xenophobic attacks. What if his documents were just seized by obviously ordinary citizens and then set on fire, he's lynched or something? And, even though this thing, it has a few sides to it, I think the main problem is what you were saying, that because they've been segregated for so long, these things have been so deeply ingrained in them that they always think that it is a competition between them and another party. Because after the apartheid regime ended, or even during that time, they had to try to strive and fight for access to their own land, to resources that were there for them long before colonialism even started. So after that, now we have people migrating into their countries and, people have the qualifications. Like, it's, like I said, multifaceted in that. Another aspect is they were most likely also denied access to quality education. So imagine living in a land which is your own, your ancestors' lands, all of that. Colonialism happens. You are denied access to education. Now there's a regime, that regime has ended. Everything is free now. You can access all of that. There's still some systemic problems. Now, foreign nationals who have the qualifications, you may need to also do something with your life. They come and take the jobs away from you, so to speak, or at least from their perspective. Obviously, that would spark some outrage, but they need to also look within.
Even with that in the video, I saw the man trying to speak that he's an immigrant, like he's supposed to be there, not like supposed, but he has the papers. But let's just even take if they would have attacked him, which they were doing to some other African countries, that would have been a very, very serious issue.
A gentleman was even beaten mercilessly. I don't think we had that. A gentleman was beaten. And so the whole issue was that, like you rightly said, some of them were denied, education. And so back to school, those who completed school somewhere 2015, 2016, that read literature, there were some this book about apartheid era where they brought,
the poets and
dance, this song, Sarafina, used to art choreography and all that.
So it was serious there, but then we have to condemn this act that even it is not lawful for you to do that. This kind of power is invested in the immigration officers in every country. And I think that the AU and other unions should come together and help do away with this. And like I rightly said, these people were not educated. They were not told the history of their freedom. If they know, I don't think they will be attacking the other African countries. Because in 1957,
they do.
So I don't. If they do, I don't think they will do that.
Right. Because they have. What is it Queen V or?
Yeah, Queen V.
She being an advocate, she made a statement that they don't need Africans. They should go back to their countries and fight their governments.
And then let's ask this question also: do they treat the Caucasians who also immigrate into the country the same way?
That's the question
They don't.
So right now, it's kind of frustration. They started with the whites, now they're on the blacks. Because still unemployment is still high there. They are still competing with other, foreign nationals for the small businesses they have. And then when you listen to those who have been there for a very long time, most of them do not even have the certificate. Even if you employ them, they decide what to do. They decide when to come to work.
Because they feel that is their land.
You understand?
So,
but if they start to fight like this, there are other South Africans too who have businesses in other, African countries. So, like I said, this is not right.
But there's also another problem. There's also another problem that I just remembered, which is the fact that some of these colonial, or, for lack of a better term, let me just use the whites. These imperialists or these colonial masters, white people who came there, some of them stayed and nationalized or naturalized, and now their descendants are also now calling themselves South Africans. And when we try to trace, the history, we know that these people are not actually South Africans. These are people who came and ruled over. So there is still a percentage of the population that controls a lot of the economics there, because, like I said, the white people. So these are the people, as you even mentioned, that they had access to 80% of the good, let me just say, the good resources there. And their descendants are there, and they are the ones handling everything. So in a way, the apartheid regime is still ongoing, just like the way even with African nations, we still talk about neo-colonialism, that even as of 2026, African countries still depend on the Western countries. We depend on all these Bretton Woods institutions for loans and all of that. So coming back to this South African issue where they still are not as free as we may like to say it on paper, because the people controlling or at the helm of affairs are still the ones there, the white people. This issue even brought my mind to this phenomenon in Botswana, where there are diamond mines, right? And apparently they are not allowed to sell these diamonds to Africans. And if you go back to go and look at who owns these diamond mines and companies and all of that, you realize that they are not African people.
Indigenous people.
So that's where the problem is that maybe they should, let me not, you know what, let me not.
Yeah, but they are attacking Africans.
I think that they should rather, look for a better way to solve their crisis instead of putting their frustrations on Africans.
And then you made mention of the fact that you should go back to Ghana and pressure the government to fix the country. Is Ghana fixed or not fixed?
We're on the way.
We're on the way, right? But then when that disturbing incident happened, the sector minister, the foreign minister, Okujato Ablakwa, responded in that he said he has held a high-level telephone conversation with the South African counterpart, Roland Lamola, to demand a full-scale investigation into the incident. And then the ministry also has confirmed that no Ghanaian lives have been lost in the latest wave of tension. And then the Ghana High Commissioner to South Africa, Benjamin Kwashi, has identified the primary victim, the man I said was beaten, in the viral video, which featured a confrontation by a local activist known as Queen V, and is currently providing him with the direct support. And then government has also called for unity, urging that the hatred of few French elements should not undermine the shared history and bond between the two nations. And then this morning too, the sector minister says he has reached out to the sector minister and everything is ongoing, the speech and everything. And I would like to conclude by saying that even in Nkrumah, on the 6th of March 1957, he made mention of the fact that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked to the total liberation of Africa. And so the same spirit of African unity is what we must reflect on today as we discuss xenophobia on the continent.
Right.
And so, like I said, it defeats the spirit of African unity and Pan-Africanism. And I think that African Union should come together to solve this issue once and for all.
Lastly, before we go into the next segment, I'm also thinking that the aggression towards other African countries is a bit misplaced. It's more like it is something that they have towards the people controlling the helm of, or the people at the helm of affairs, but they know that they do not have the power and resources to fight back. So they tend to, channel it towards the others that they know they can do something to, just because the same issue is something that's also happening in the US, where you find a lot of people talking about the Mexicans and the Africans and the blacks are taking all their jobs from them and they don't want them here. And that is why, there were calls for Trump to strengthen immigration laws and build a wall between Mexico and the US and all of that. But then, like you said, the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked to the liberation of Africa. And that being said, all too soon, the online and print review segment has ended. Up next is the sports segment. Please do stay tuned.
Hello, lovely viewers. Good morning and welcome to the sports update segment on your favorite morning show, the Koko Digest Morning Show. And you know, here we bring you nothing but the best in the world of sports. And we are covering all the action, both local and international. I am your host for today, Benedict Nketia Kwating. Join me today as we dive into what's been going on in our world of sports, the news, the heartbreaks, the setbacks, the disappointments, and all that. Before I begin with my stories, just as you know, let me take you back. Yesterday, we had some games that were played, EPL games. We had some EPL games. We had the Spanish La Liga games. We had the DFB, that's the Pokal Championship. That's in Germany that was played. Bayern Munich against Leverkusen, where Bayern Munich won by 2-0. So Bayern Munich goes on ahead to compete again for another trophy. And then we come back to Spanish La Liga. Yes. 2 days ago, Real Madrid won their game, so they are giving a chase to FC Barcelona for the title race, hoping to close the gap. And yesterday, Barcelona was able to win their game against Celta Vigo, therefore opening up the gap once more to 9 points. Unfortunately, they had to win, but they had to lose some of their key players in the competition. They lost Lamine Yamal, the best player in the world, to an injury, hamstring injury. And then Cancelo, while Cancelo also has an injury, he was also sent off in the beginning of the game, unfortunately. And then the interesting part of football that has been going on, the EPL, the English Premier League, where we know that Arsenal and then Manchester City are going head-to-head, toe-to-toe for the Premier League title. Yes, yesterday Arsenal was praying so much that Manchester City will lose some points against Burnley. It was a prayer by most of the Arsenal fans in the world. Unfortunately for them, not that God didn't listen to their prayer, but then I believe maybe Arsenal, City players or City fans were praying more than Arsenal fans were praying, because they emerged winners, scoring a 0-goal against Burnley, a goal that was scored very early in the game, 5 minutes. Erling Haaland scored a goal, and then after that, the game was just back and forth. Burnley played their very best. They tried to equalize, they tried to do some things, but unfortunately, luck wasn't on their side. Tactically, they were no better than Pep Guardiola, so they couldn't equalize or come out as winners in the game. So at this point on the table, EPL table, Manchester City is leading the table with 37 goals, and then Arsenal was also directly under them, second position, the same point with 37 goals. So at this point, head-to-head, Manchester City is ahead of Arsenal. So that means Manchester City will take the lead on the table, and then Arsenal will follow. But the next 5 games will determine. It's going to be a very long run for both teams, because whoever slacks, let me use the word slack so that the generation will understand, my generation will understand very well. Whoever slacks or gives up will lose, because at this point you're on the same points on the table, the same number of goals, but head-to-head, City is ahead. So you win all your games, you score more goals, you be the winner. You win more games, you score lesser goals, you lose out in the competition. So let's move on. This is just something small on what is going on. Let me start with my stories for today. My stories for today, we have a local story, 2 local stories, and then 2 other international stories. Let me start with my local story for today. That has to do with our very own African Ghana Giants, 2 Giants teams. First of all, it has to do with Kumasi Asante Kotoko. And then this story is about their very own keeper, Mohamed Kamara. Kotoko goalkeeper Mohamed Kamara hits with 5-match ban and then 20,000 cedis fine over referee assault. So Mohamed Kamara, one of the young keepers in Asante Kotoko, very good goalkeeper, but with a little bit of a temper, which has led him into trouble over his, he confronted the referee after a game against Kerala United over the weekend. That was last month, around March 8th, March 9th, 2026. Yes, he had a confrontation with the officials after a game where they lost by a goal to 0 and going down by one man, where he went to, attack the referee on sporting behavior, and he was physically assaulting the match referee after the final whistle of the game. Yes, the game was filled with a lot of emotions. There was tensions in the game and all that. And then after the game, he had to do, what he did. And then now the GFA, that is the disciplinary committee, they've handed him a 5-match ban and then a 20,000 cedis fine, which if he's not able to pay within a speculated number of days, he would also face another disciplinary committee. So yes, we hope that he will learn a lesson, and the other team members and other players in other teams will also take up lessons from this action. You don't assault the officials after a game, before a game, during the game. It is not allowed. We need to protect them from our fans. That means you, the players, you have a responsibility not to also engage in such things. If you have a problem after the game, there are channels to which you can communicate your grievances. There are channels to which you can communicate your issues, your problems, your discomforts, whatever you didn't like about officiating. Find a way to communicate other than assaulting the officials. Now let's move on to our next story for today. So I mentioned the two giants of Ghana. We've spoken about Kumasi and Koko. Now let's move on to Accra Hearts of Oak. Yes, so this story has to do with Accra Hearts of Oak signing, hoping to extend the contract they have with Kelvin Osei Asibe. Yes, so the story is Hearts of Oak in contract extension talks with Kelvin Osei Asibe, one of the strong and competent midfielders in the Ghana Premier League. He's a very good player. He's had about 80 appearances so far, 25 years of age, and then very strong, very good, very tactically good, very convincing. And then when he has a control of the ball in the midfield, you can see that he's a master of the game. Yeah, so Hearts of Oak is in negotiations with the centre-back, Kevin Osei Asibe, over a possible contract extension, as the club looks to secure his long-term future. So yes, they are thinking about their long-term plans. That is Accra Hearts of Oak, the Phobians, are thinking of a long-term plan to extend the contract of Kevin Osei Asibe and hopefully secure him so that no other team will come for him. He's actually a very good centre-back in the midfield, defensively and attacking. He has attacking prowess, but mostly his prowess lies in holding the defense part of the team. So yes, Accra Hearts of Oak are trying to secure him. They signed him from 11 Wonders back in 2023 after he played very well, an impressive spell. He had a very impressive spell, and then Hearts of Oak had to sign him. That was in 2023. Now they are looking forward to extending his contract. Now let's move on to our international story. So today's story is mostly on violence, it's on disciplinary committees, people breaching the rules in football. We don't want these things we don't want to encourage these actions because it is not the best. Football is supposed to bring us together. So when players or when fans turn out to be violent, it actually destroys the love or the what we have for the game. So yes, CAF opens disciplinary probe after OC Safi versus USM Alga clash ends in chaos. Yes, so this was a game that was there was the crowd trouble mass between OC Safi versus USM Alga clash, where there was a lot of chaos. They were throwing around chairs, throwing bottles, stones, and all that. We don't know where they found all these things. Apart from the bottles and the chairs, the stones, we don't know where they got them from. But yes, this is a game between a CAF Confederation game, competition between the Moroccan side, that's OC Safi, and then the Algeria side, USM Alga. So I don't know if viewers are aware of this, but there is this tension between Morocco and Algeria. Like even the national teams, there is this tension. unsettled beef between these two countries, where unfortunately they had to play a CAF Confederation tournament, a CAF Confederation Cup, which had to come from one side of the Moroccan team and then another side of the Algerian team. So after the game, it ended in 1-1, which actually saw the Algerian side, going through on away goals, because the first leg that was played in Algeria ended in a goalless draw, 0-0. So back in Moroccan home, where Algeria had to score an away goal, play 1-1 against Morocco, they had to qualify. But then there was a lot of tension, referee issues, and then all that. But this is mainly between the fans of the Algerian team and the fans of the Moroccan team clashing, fighting themselves and all that. So a disciplinary committee has been set by CAF, which is determined to examine the incident in detail. The governing body is expected to adopt a measured approach to find a means to curb this issue that is going on, find a solution to this issue once and for all. The fixture, which featured the two teams, now risk being overshadowed by the off-field disorder. So this is a report by a CAF official who is saying that they are seeking to reinforce its commitment to safety, discipline, and crowd control across its competition. So this is not the first and last the time they will have competition or they have games between these countries. Is going to be happening. So now they are looking for solutions to put a stop to this kind of chaos that erupts whenever these games are played. Now let me move on to our last story for today. And then our last story for today is back in England, where Leicester fans demand change as Rowett urges decisive action. Yes, so Leicester fans, football fans will, if they can recall, a decade ago, 10 years ago, Leicester was leading the EPL. They won the EPL competition. Leicester United. It's quite unfortunate that Leicester City. It's quite unfortunate that 10 years after winning the EPL, they are being relegated to the Championship. It's quite unfortunate. League One, from the Premier League, winning the Premier League, and in 10 years you are being relegated to League One. It's quite unfortunate that the team of such caliber, with such facilities, good players. We have our very own, the captain of the Black Stars, Jordan Ayew, playing in this team. We have Kamaldeen also playing in this team. And then we see them being relegated to League One. And as a captain of the national team, playing in a team where you don't even, I don't want to start a propaganda, but then this is the truth. Jordan Ayew doesn't even start for Leicester City. He is not even a starter. He comes in as a substitute. And now he is a captain of the Black Stars, a team of such caliber, Black Stars. Your captain is being relegated to the League One. And in that team, he doesn't even start the games. But then, who knows? He's a captain, so we just have to accord him that respect. But then, let's move on to the story of Leicester. So the fans are demanding that, they change the administration. Something needs to be done because the club is being relegated to League One after 10 years of, winning the Premier League title. That was on Tuesday. The fans they played a 2-2 draw with Hull City, which actually, determined their fate, where they had to, be relegated. It was after that game that they were relegated to the League One. So the fans actually had to go back to the team, the board, and then of course make their grievances known to them. The Guntap, that is the manager, as well as the manager, made a statement. He said that, and I quote, "No excuses for dropping to the third tier a decade after the 5,000-1 Premier League title win, just 5 years on from lifting the FA Cup. It's quite unfortunate. Responsibility sits with me." That is a statement made by Guntap. That is the board directors. He's the owner of Leicester City, saying that responsibility also sits with him. he's going to. We have experienced the highest highs and now the lowest lows. And the pain is shared by all of us. I'm truly sorry for the disappointment we have caused. I understand the strength of feeling among our supporters, and we do not take your support for granted, especially at moments like this. So yes, they are expressing their discomfort, their distaste, or their heartbreak and disappointment in what has happened. And then hopefully something can be done by the team, the restructuring of the team and the players, the mentality of the players and all that, as well as maybe doing something proper. Hopefully next season they can return back to better competition. That is the championship or the EPL by winning the League One as it is done. So yes, Leicester actually won 17 out of 82 league matches. This is very heartbreaking. I saw this stats and I was like, Leicester City. This is not the Leicester City that we know. This is the Leicester City that our very own captain is playing. But this is football, anything can happen. So yes, hopefully they can bounce back, they can perform better, and then we'll see them back again competing on the highest level. This is for the sports update segment. My name is Benedict Nketia Kwating. Next is the business segment with my very own colleague, Bernard Nsia. Thank you.
Hello there, good morning to you and welcome. This is the Business Update segment on the Koko Digest Morning Show. I am your host, Peter, and now to our stories. Ghana's debt to GDP ratio is projected to rise to 53% in 2026, up from 45.3% in 2025, according to the IMF. This follows a significant improvement from 61.8% in 2024, after total public debt declined. However, the IMF did not clearly outline the specific factors behind the expected increase, noting only that the projection is based on Ghana's post-debt restructuring path. There's more to this.
Analysts say the outlook could shift depending on government's borrowing, exchange rate movement, and the pace of economic growth. In April 2026, government raised about 2.7 billion Ghana cedi through a 7-year bond at a 12.5% interest rate, marking a return to long-term domestic borrowing. Despite the expected rise in 2026, the IMF projects the debt ratio will ease slightly to 50.7% in 2027 as efforts to manage the country's debts continue.
Away from that story, credit conditions in Ghana's banking sector remained weak in February 2026 as banks continued to adopt a cautious lending approach and showed a stronger preference for investing in government and Bank of Ghana securities. According to the March 2026 monetary policy report by the Bank of Ghana, total net credit flows slowed to 14 billion 571 million cedis, down from 18 billion 881 million cedis in the same period in 2025. This was driven by reduced lending to the public sector and slower growth in private sector credit. Credit to the public sector fell by 1 billion 762 million cedis compared to growth recorded in the previous year, reflecting fiscal consolidation and lower government borrowing from banks.
The private sector remained the main recipient of credit, with lending increasing by 16 billion 334 million cedis, though at a slower pace than the previous years. Its shares of total credit also rose to 95.8%. Private sector credit stood at about 103 billion 667 million cedis at the end of February 2026, up from 87 billion 333 million in 2025. Sectorally, service attracted the highest credit flow, followed by mining and quarrying, which saw strong growth. However, lending to transport, storage, and communication declined during the period.
And on to our last story, the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies, COMAC, is calling for the removal of dominant licenses as part of wider reforms aimed at cleaning up and stabilizing Ghana's downstream petroleum sector. The move follows concerns about what it describes as excessive licensing in 2025, which saw the number of oil marketing companies and LPG marketing companies rise to over 229. According to COMAC, this has led to an overcrowded market, triggering intense price competition and unsustainable undercutting among operators. There's more to the story.
The situation is worsened about 57 companies that remain licensed but are not operational, as they do not consistently lift petroleum products. COMAC says the current licensing system is weak and needs urgent review. This is therefore advocating tighter rules for entry into the sector, including higher requirements of capital operations and corporate governance for both new and existing firms. The Chamber is also pushing for a structured measure and consolidation program to reorganize petroleum services providers that fail to meet the revised standards. This, it says, would help improve efficiency, strengthen resilience, and ensure long-term sustainability in the downstream markets.
Let's now turn our attention to the exchange rate market and the gold coin prices.
That remain licensed.
that is it for the business update segment on the Koko Digest Morning Show. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Peter Insia. Up next is the main segment. Please do stay with us.
You're welcome back to the Koko Digest Morning Show, and if you're just tuning in, it's time for the main segment discussion. And today we're going to be talking about child labor and why it still persists in our beloved country, Ghana. I have 3 guests here with me, one from Shraj, one from Starlight Foundation, and one from the Labor Department. So I'll have them introduce themselves and give us a brief overview of the institutions they're coming from. So let's get acquainted with them. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Right, I hope you're well. Thank you so much for joining us today. So quickly, let's introduce ourselves and then give a little background to where we're from. So let me start with you.
Good morning, Ira, and good morning to your lovely viewers. I'm Odalinga Mini.
Okay.
I'm the Child Labor Unit of the Labor Department.
Okay, so is that part of the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations?
Yes, so we are departments under the ministry.
Okay.
Yes, and then Child Labor Unit is a unit within the Labor Department that has the sole mandate to ensure that it coordinates all child labor interventions across the country.
Right. Okay, so what about you, sir?
I'm Osei Obed from Starlight Foundation.
Okay.
So I happen to be the assistant project manager. So Starlight Foundation is a charitable organization that is envisioned to create a world of hope for every vulnerable child here in Ghana to live up safely, free from threats, and maximize potential. So we do that through empowerment, education, and other projects and initiatives.
All right. Okay, so my last but not the least.
My name is Joy Enima Deborah.
Okay.
I'm a Deputy Director, Public Education, SRAJ. Okay. The Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice has 3 mandates. Human rights, administrative justice, and anti-corruption. When we are talking about child labor, it falls under the human rights mandate.
Okay.
And because the commission is established to promote and protect fundamental human rights of all persons in Ghana, children are very important in the promotion and the protection. And so child labor is of essence to the commission. Because it's a human rights issue.
Okay, thank you so much. So I hope you're acquainted with our guests. So quickly into the conversation, breaking the ice. When we say child labor, what exactly does a labor department mean, or even Shraj? And also from the NGO's perspective, because we hear all kinds of definitions. People are told that if you hit a child, it's abuse or something. If you let the child fetch water, it's child labor. What is child labor, and where does it become something that should cause alarm or should be a cause for alarm?
Okay, thank you, Yaira. I think that when we say what is child labor, there's a global definition for it. And as a country, because Ghana has ratified certain ILO conventions, we like to stick to those conventions. However, we domesticate the definition. So for Ghana, we can't say that child labor unit has a different definition, and then SRAJ also has a different definition. We all have the same definition.
Working definition.
Maybe it's the way we, for lack of a better word, coordinate our activity. But child labor is very clear. It just means that any work that affects the health, the education, the moral development of the child, anything that is an infringement on the rights of the child in terms of work.
Okay.
So anything that the child will do, work, it can be work at home, it can be work, employment, any form of work that infringes or harms the child in any way, it qualifies as child labor. However, we do not take the definition as broadly as it sounds. There are some indicators that we work with to ensure that, okay, say that a child is in child labor. Because, like I said, we've ratified certain conventions. And then one of the conventions we've ratified, and I want to make this clear because there's a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings about what child labor is. I have personally been to institutions and communities where parents do not want to hear about child labor because they think that we are sort of indulging the children or allowing them to be disrespectful. But child labor just basically is ensuring that the child can do some level of work, because Ghana has ratified ILO Convention 138, which states that the minimum age of employment, and we chose the age 15. So actually in Ghana, if you're a 15-year-old, you can work. But the conversation is you should do work that does not harm you. You should do work that is devoid of hazards. So you know, in our cultural context, we have ways we raise children. We socialize you such that we teach you how to sweep, how to clean. Would you classify that as child labor? No. There's a distinct difference between what is child work and what is child labor. So usually you have that conversation coming up, but child labor has a broad global definition. Ghana, when we ratified, we made sure that we domesticate it to our cultural setting, because your cultural setting plays an important role in how you ensure that you are eliminating child labor from the country. So it's not as simple as it sounds, because there are certain indicators that you do. Where is the child working? How old is the child? Age is very important when it comes to child labor. Right. So these are some of the things I'm sure we'll unpack as we go ahead. Yes.
Right. Okay. So from Sharaj, where does child work then become child labor?
All right. So like she has rightly said, the ILO Convention even allows 13 years to do a light work. And for light work, it should not affect the child's education, health, and development, whether it's physical or moral development. And so Shraj is very mindful of these facts, and that any child who is below 13 years cannot be employed. And so any child within that years, if you are employed, that is a no-no. Aside that, she has also mentioned that it does not exonerate children from doing household chores, because it's part of our training. And even in the house, you can help with things that are not hazardous to your life. And so if there is like family business, in Ghana we have shops, we run shops at home. And if after school, after doing your homework, you've been fed, you can sit in there, help an hour or two.
Yeah.
That is not child labor. But if I'm sending a child to the roadside to sell pure water, and the child's life is at risk because he can be knocked by a vehicle, that becomes child labor.
Right.
So we need to distinct the work and be able to divorce those that are harmful, that can harm them, and those that are not.
Right.
Also, when we even talk about the 15-year age of working age, it still protects the children.
Okay.
So you cannot, even for adults like us, you should be working in a safe environment, which is healthy, and also you enjoy your leave and all those to make sure that, and also your salaries, so that you are not being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
But within the employment age, you still have the protection.
Okay. So, would you like to add anything?
I think they've said it all. So simply put, I would say child labor is the work that is going to deprive a child from its, let's say, the childhood, the potential, anything that can cause harm to the child.
All right. Okay. So, both of you mentioned employment, but there are, at least even in our current dispensation, we have situations where children below the age of 15, even 10, they have about 2 or 3 younger siblings, and sometimes these younger siblings are left in the care of the 10-year-old for long hours of the day because the parents are not available. There's no other adults to supervise. Would that also be classified as child labor or child work?
Well, just before we get in, I want us to understand. I mentioned some indicators for us to situate the example you are giving.
Yeah.
So we have indicators we use. First, you ask yourself, this work that this child is doing, is it affecting the child's health? Where is the child doing this work? What environment is the child doing this work? And what is the age of the child? She rightly said that we have ILO conventions where we say that light work, age of 13 and 14, you can do light work. That child is a 10-year-old. I just want us to have this conversation because I don't want us to just jump and say the child is in child labor. But we need to interrogate the circumstances under which you find that child.
Yeah.
The child is 10-year-old. How matured is a 10-year-old to cater for little siblings? If there's an emergency, does that 10-year-old know how to respond to the emergency? If the child has been left with siblings, how is the child going to feed the siblings? So you see, these are questions that you ask yourself before you conclude that, okay, this child is in child labor. Yes, there are some instances where you clearly can tell that, oh, this child is in child labor. But until then, you need to ask yourself, make sure that you satisfy all of these questions, these indicators. What is the environment? There's no adults there. Clearly, there's a problem. And I also want to say that sometimes we confuse child labor with other social protection or child protection issues here. So you can have child labor as an issue, then you can also have another child protection as an issue. So is this child in child labor, a 10-year-old who is catering for the siblings? Where are the parents? Is the child living with maybe a relative? Is the child doing domestic care work? So there are lots of questions you need to ask before you can conclude that, okay, this child is in child labor. But from the scenario that you gave, of course, at some level or to some extent, that child is doing some form of work.
Yeah.
Even though the child it's what domestic work or the child is doing, taking care of their siblings, the child is engaged in some form of work without adult supervision. So for now, if we won't say that it's a child in child labor, if we've rightly satisfied all of these questions and we have answers to it, then we can say that, okay, the child is doing some form of work. So therefore, looking at the age of the child, which is 10, and we've said that you need to be at least 13 to do light work. How matured is a 10-year-old? So these are questions that we can ask ourselves. And I'm asking because I also want our viewers at home to also just understand the issues and try to interrogate the issues and find out, okay, based on what we are discussing, do we believe that that child is in child labor? Yeah.
Right.
Yes, and again, we shouldn't also deny our children of their childhood. Children have a right to childhood, enjoy life, have leisure, play, and do all. So even if it is in the presence of an adult and the supervision, yet the child is overloaded and it is working within hours of after 8 to 10 and 12, all those can be looked at. So it is not only when there is not supervision. There can be supervision, but the work can be laborious and can be denying the child from enjoying his or her childhood.
Okay, because I'm asking this because we tend to have a lot of conversations around mental health and adultification of children, that a lot of people grew up having to take care of their siblings and all of that, and it has affected them in one way or another. So I'm linking it to the fact that they also mentioned that it deprives them of certain, privileges, their health and all of that. So in this case, then, if these questions are answered, is there a time frame or an amount of repetition that needs to happen before it can be, demarcated or described as child labor? Or if it's a one-time thing, does that make it okay?
It depends. It depends on the situation. It can be a one-time thing, but the child's health is at stake. Like she rightly said, it could be that there's an adult, but at the end of the day, you are depriving that 10-year-old of going out there and playing with friends because you've given the child so much responsibility. The child doesn't enjoy their childhood. And that's one of the things that we say, the child, and it's in its entirety, the development of the child is not hindered. So yes, I agree that to some extent, some of the things have to be continuous. But there are situations where you see them clearly and you know that, no, this one, then this needs an intervention. The child is directly and immediately in child labor. So it could be a hazardous form of child labor because we also have that. We have the child labor and we have the worst forms of it where hazardous is part of it. So yes, it could be a one-time thing or it could also be something that is a process. Yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. So I'd like to remind you, viewers, to send in your questions to the WhatsApp number displayed onto your screens or to the YouTube or Facebook live stream. Ask your questions so that these very key people here can answer them for you. Any confusions you have, they will clear them for you. If you have any house help at home that is below the age of 15, the law is coming for you. Now, coming to, the institution of STRAJ. Now, Ghana has a constitution. We have the Children's Act. We've even ratified the ILO conventions and even a national action plan. But approximately 2 million children are still in child labor. What does this then mean? What picture does it paint for us as a nation?
Taking children as our future, this is not the best for those who are becoming, and when we are gone, they will take our positions. And for me, it is not just about promulgating laws. Ghana has a lot of laws, beautiful laws, but how are we enforcing the laws? So if we promulgate laws and we are not able to enforce these laws, then there are issues. Aside that, the level of sensitization and education. If we make laws, people need to know. So we need to create awareness of these laws. I'm not holding brief for anybody, but I can bet you that some people do not know. People who are listening to us may be saying that, oh, so is this also child labor? Or, hey, I never knew of the 13-year clause. I never knew of the 15-year clause. So if I am busy, I can leave my children in the care of my older child and be somewhere else without knowing that they are committing an offense. And so we need to create a lot of education about our laws. Then we need to also commit ourselves to creating structures that make things work. If we make laws and we are saying that children in child labor should be rescued, where are we putting them when they are rescued? We don't have shelters. In my wildest thinking, Ghana cannot boast of 10 shelters, 10 good shelters. If children are in child labor, whether it's in fishing, whether it's in agric, whether it's in service provision, as in kaya years and all that, even if the agencies, the protection agencies, are rescuing all of these children, where are we putting them? So state must put in some structures for which these children can be held. Talk about resource. How much resource is given to institutions, protection institutions, agencies to be able to work? We need to monitor these things. Monitor what is going on region by region, district by district, to have data, to be able to deal with the issues on the ground. Then we also need to talk about issues like the agencies. How do they have the willingness? Are they applying the resources to these issues effectively? Collaboration between agencies to be able, so that we don't duplicate efforts. We are forging forward, so we are applying the resources. Ghana always talk about inadequate resources, but the little we have, how are we applying them so that we'll be able to get the right result than this person tackling it from this angle, this other person tackling it from this angle, and we are not getting the right result. So these are some of the things why, or the reasons why, though we have the laws, the issue still persists.
But then also, the Shraj Commissioner herself mentioned in 2025, I think, that there is a significant gap in the implementation and monitoring and prosecution. So if Shraj's commissioner has said this, then what does that mean for the child who is, being labored somewhere? What does that mean for the child? Because Shraj is the Commissioner of Human Rights and Administrative Justice, and even Shraj is acknowledging that there is a gap. What happens then to that child?
Resolving issues do not happen overnight. So we keep talking about it. We keep the education on. For Shraj, we should acknowledge that we do not prosecute. And so we are an investigative body though, but even child labor issues are criminal. And Shraj, apart from doing the education, we cannot investigate into child labor issues. So we collaborate anyway with the child labor department. We have officers who are on their panels and boards. But then we, apart from the education aspect and maybe other child labor violations, we only have to refer to the appropriate quarters. And so we still engage government, we still engage our stakeholders, including the Child Labor Department and other stakeholders during our education, community engagements, and community leaders. We still engage them and do a lot of education about it. But then we hope that the data will minimize gradually till we get there.
But if we are doing education and then there is no alternative provided, will the education really hold any water?
I've already mentioned that people may not know they are even committing offense. Some also, when we want to bring up a change, behavioral change, we also need to make people know the effect upon their lives. So the effect, it's not just you. The effect, you may be thinking of poverty. I don't have other means of resolving this, and that's why I'm doing this. Have you thought about the child? What effect is on the child? The health effects. A child can die because of child labor. The risk involved, the inability to go to school, gain skills, and be gainfully employed. So at the end of the day, you are looking at a cyclical poverty or intergenerational poverty. So the child in his or her adult life will still have to provide very cheap labor. And so if you are thinking of poverty now, then your generations to come are also going to be in poverty. So sometimes we need to, during the education, we should let them know the effect so that they will think of maybe sacrificing today for tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So I've noticed that people are calling the WhatsApp number, and I would like to inform you that this is the WhatsApp number. When the phone lines are opened, I will alert you. So this number is solely for WhatsApp and SMSs. So please send your messages here. I cannot pick up the calls. I'm so sorry. Now, coming to you, Mr. Osei. Now, the government has put about 2 million children in child labor, like basically classifying these children that they are in child labor. And in your day-to-day work with, street-connected children, does the number feel accurate?
So, on the ground level, the reality is it's far more uncomfortable.
It's far more
uncomfortable than what we actually have in our official reports. Yes, this is because, as she rightly said, child labor is often not obvious. Okay, it's deeply embedded in, let's say, the everyday survival of these people.
Right.
So we'll see children who wake up very early, will go to the farms, others who will go to the lakeside to do some fishing, even under dangerous conditions.
Yeah.
And then some also be on the street, will be selling late in the night. And then yet still these things are considered to be normal children helping their families. So with this said, the problem actually is not the numbers. The numbers in the reports are not missing. It is because of how community has normalized these things. Yeah, you could see the problem is actually the lived experiences of these people. Yeah, so it's very, very, very uncomfortable.
Right. Okay. So does that then mean that the numbers are an understatement?
Yeah, it's an understatement.
Wow. Okay. So from where you stand, how different is the experience of enforcement for a child on the streets compared to what our laws and our official reports describe?
From where we sit, I would say, yeah, in certain cases they are doing good, but then in other cases too, it is not sufficient. This is because we see rescuing as, let's say, an end of a problem, but the reality is actually the beginning of it. So a true rehabilitation should require long-term, let's say, psychological support.
Okay.
It should actually entails it should give you like a kind of a long-term support that you are providing, whether it's education, whether it's stable income for families. Because tell me, if I'm to remove a child from, let's say, the street, and then this child is going back home where there is no safety, security, food, anything for this, you are just putting the child in. And inevitably, you are just pushing the child to go back to the street and then do the work. So the problem is not just isolating the cases, but it's the system. It's the system. And then if you don't acknowledge that one, our solutions will remain unlimited.
Right. So coming to the Labor Department, Your unit is the body that is responsible for enforcing child labor laws on the ground. But are these enforcements strong enough to actually deter offenders? And do most cases even go without real consequence, or they end up facing the consequences?
Okay, so first, I'd just like to state that child labor in Ghana now is not criminalized. Yes, the Children's Act that mentions child labor, sections 88, 89, 87, talks about the prohibition of using children, child work, then talks about the minimum age for employment, then talks about light work. But child labor is not a criminal offense as of now in Ghana. I think it's mostly because it's a social-cultural issue. So yes, I think they've mentioned issues about structures, but the structures are there. Yes, there are fundamental issues like resourcing, funding, and all of that. And then, of course, human resource as well. But the structures are there. And I just want to have that clarity here, because when you come to Ghana, the constitution is clear, the laws are clear on who manages cases. As a child labor officer or with the labor department, in as much as I'm responsible for ensuring that children are not in child labor, I cannot case manage. That mandate and role is solely for the Department of Social Welfare. Yes, we have partners that support. So if you identify a child in child labor, the law is clear. You are to refer the case to Social Welfare Department. The Social Welfare Department takes the case and they manage the case, and they have processes. And I think Mrs. Deborah made a statement about shelters. There are shelters, but I also want to have on the record that now Ghana wants to move away from that system of shelters to foster care systems, because a lot of research has gone into the work and realized that, like the example he gave, when you rescue a child and you take the child back home and the child is not able to feed, what happens to the child? So the conversation of foster care system has come in to ensure that parents and people that say that, okay, I have a big home, I want to care for these children, I'll raise them as my own, take care of them and support them. So I just wanted to have on record that there are structures in place. When you get to the district level, we have what we call the district child protection committees. Then at the community level, we have what we call the community child protection committees. The community child protection committees report issues of child labor, like you rightly asked, to the district. Now, even at that community level, most of them are able to address the issue, because you and I sit in Accra, they community with people that engage their children in child labor. And on that committee, we have representatives from their traditional councils and assemblies and different people who are prominent in the community. They sit on the issue. They speak to parents, because you see, one of the fundamental issues why child labor still persists is because of, for lack of a better word, the irresponsibility of parents. As much as there's poverty to contend with, there are people that are poor who still do not engage their children in child labor. So while there's an issue of lack of funding or poverty, there's also the responsibility of parents to ensure that they protect their children. Like she rightly said earlier, that it is not about saying that because I'm poor, I cannot protect my child, or because the parents can also be home and engage the child in child labor. And when you go to places on the lakeside, the Volta region, the Lake Volta, you find that some of these actions are done with parents and children, with relatives. So I just wanted to have on the record that there are systems and structures in place. Yes, there are fundamental challenges of funding, resources, human resources, but there are structures in place. And there are lots of laws also, but it is probably the enforcement of these laws that are not very sufficient. But there are structures, there are laws, but it is not you cannot criminalize child labor. Now, you ask the question of if the enforcement is there. Yes, but because you cannot fully criminalize child labor, like you find that somebody has used their child for child labor and the child is dead, there are no sections of the law yet that says that maybe there's a prosecution. You have to know that person will be arrested because the child is dead, but it's not necessarily because of child labor. So yes, enforcement at the district level, regional level, and even at the highest level, which is the national level, yes, it's done. It's not sufficient, but that doesn't mean that there's no enforcement. Yes.
Okay, so even coming to the enforcement question, so the ILO standards suggest that Ghana needs over 800 labor inspectors to adequately cover its workforce. So what do you actually have at the Labor Department? And how does the shortfall also shape the work in practice?
while I agree that ILO says that we should have about 800 labor officers, mind you, labor officers do not just take charge of child labor issues.
Okay.
Your welfare, your well-being, anything that has to do with labor relations, we are the institution to come to. Now, for me, I would say that even that number is an understatement, because look at the population of Ghana.
Right.
And look at how child labor issues still persist. Now, the truth of the matter is that when it comes to identification of child labor, it is your mandate, it is my mandate, it is everybody's business to say that I have seen this, I have interrogated it, and I think it's child labor. So I'm reporting it to the appropriate institution, which is the Labor Department or the Department of Social Welfare, to take it up. You can always report to SHRAJ, you can report to NGOs. They are to do the referral to social welfare. Because, for example, if you do not know where to take the child, but you know Starlight is in your community, you take the child. Theirs is to handle the case and make the referral to the Department of Social Welfare for them to handle it. Back to the issue of resources, because there's been some fundamental challenges in resources, you find that there are some private sectors and NGOs that are managing cases. In case of they identify a child, they are also able to manage cases, but it has to be in close collaboration with the Department of Social Welfare, because they have the system. So they even have a system we call SWIM, Social Welfare Information Management System, where it is the case management system for the country, where issues of generally child protection are handled. So child abuse, child labor, whatever issue it is handled from that angle. So you report and then they refer, and then they handle the case because they have trained personnel to do it. So if you ask me, while 800 might look good, we are not there yet. I think the total number of labor inspectors in Ghana is not even up to 300. But it is not just work for the Labor Department. Everybody should be able to assist. You have a neighbor. Even on your way to work, I'm sure, Tema Station, you see children selling, you see school-going hours, children are selling. So I believe that it's not just work for the Labor Department, but it's for everybody to get involved. SHRAJ is involved, different institutions are involved, the Department of Children, everybody should be involved to ensure that we protect the future of these children. Because like she said, these are the children that will take up our role. I will not always be a labor officer. Some child will have to grow up and come and continue from where I ended. So yes, I think it's everybody's mandate. But I agree, I think it should even be more, looking at the severity of the issue in the country.
Okay, so you also mentioned that Ghana does not even have up to the 800, right? So that being said, is there a reason? Is it an employment issue? Is it a funding of the ministry issue? Why is it that we don't even have the ILO standard of 800 labor inspectors?
I wouldn't want to answer for the management of the Labor Department or the Office of the Head of Civil Service, but I do know that we have put in quite a number of applications to get clearance, because before you can recruit, you need clearance. So I think that those are conversations that my management is having with the Ministry of Finance and also with the Office of the Local Government, Office of the Head of Civil Service, to ensure that we are getting people recruited in our various districts across the country.
Okay, so yes, the phone lines have been opened, so please do well to call the number that is displayed onto your screens and ask your questions. We also have a few questions here. So this one is from Mr. Kuma in Tamale. And he says the conversation is very interesting, and he's asking, how many children have you directly withdrawn from labor in the past year, and where are they now? So I think this will be for the Labor Department and then Starlight Foundation.
Yes, I cannot give specific numbers to it, because while the Labor Department also does there, like I said, we do not do direct case management. But I can say that when the case is referred to us, we refer to social welfare, because they are the mandated institution to handle case management systems. So I think that for 2025, some data came, but I don't want to put myself in a situation where the figures might not correct, but some data came, and most of the data also comes from partners. A lot of cocoa companies across the country, private sector, development partners are also in their space, ensuring that a lot of children are rescued, a lot of children are rehabilitated, a lot of children are reintegrated with their families. So there's data to show that, yes, there's quite a number of children that are being withdrawn and then reintegrated with family or taken to foster care homes.
All right. So what about you, Starlight Foundation.
From where we sit as an organization, we have projects that addresses these gaps. And as part of our project, we have the Equi-Access. And then the Equi-Access, we seek to address the gap where street-connected children are, let me say, not entirely excluded, but when it comes to access to justice, these people are not seen.
Right.
So they are invisible. So as part of the project, we do this legal awareness workshop, both in schools, communities, and all that. And some of the cases that we've seen, yes, we have an anonymous referral pathways.
Okay.
And then, as she said, I can't, from where I sit, I can't give an exact number, but what we know is we work with partners, key partners such as the SRAJ, Social Welfare Department, and all that. So when these cases comes to us, then we also lead the conversation by reporting these cases to them.
Okay, so since SRAJ is also involved, have there been any children you've directly withdrawn, and where are they now? What's happening to them?
No, SRAJ doesn't actually do the rescue.
Okay.
Yes, and even with SRAJ, because it's a human rights issue, we need an identifiable complainant.
Okay.
And so sometimes our head office is very close to Tema Station.
Yeah.
You sit, you see issues, and you are so helpless because nobody is complaining to you. And you do education with them, and you tell them, if you see anything, come and report. It's good we are having this conversation. And so if people are aware, I'm happy she said child labor issues is everybody's issue. And we like, as Ghanaians, we like being in our corner. We don't want to incur anybody's trouble. And so we don't want to even report. Yes, of course, some people may have fears or doubts of the agencies, but we are here telling them that we are here because of them. And so if you have knowledge of any such, report. If you don't report, the institutions may not even have knowledge of what's going on, or per their mandate may not be able to act. So it is important that we do report.
So Judith Enim is in Swedru. She's asking how many child labor complaints has SRAJ received this year, and how many have been resolved?
All right, I mentioned earlier on that cases of child labor is always referred.
Okay, so how many have been referred then?
I don't have the details with me and cannot mention, but I still believe that some cases have been reported.
But are you aware of any child labor reports that usually come to SRAJ?
Because we are all over the country, yes, there is always the possibility that in the districts and in the regions, there will be cases of child labor.
Right. So this last one is from Mr. Fum, and he says, when was the last inspection conducted in known child labor hotspots like mining or fishing communities? So this one is for all of you. Has there been any inspection, child labor? Yes. When was the last one?
When you ask when was the last one, it's difficult to respond, not because we do not do it, but because it's happening every day.
Okay.
Every day we get labor inspectors out there. Sometimes there's even a joint partnership between institutions. Yeah. So you can have that the labor department office in a district, for example, BBNE, partners with SRAJ, partners with NCC, partners with even Minerals Commission, and they go out there to conduct inspections. So for inspections in child labor prone areas or child labor hotspots, there's always inspections happening across the country, everywhere. If you know hotspots, you can always go to the labor departments or the departments of social welfare, report, and then we pick it up and then we conduct inspections. Yes.
Okay. Starlight Foundation, have you come across any?
We are more focused about empowerment and education. And so we have monitoring and evaluation team. After doing all these education, public awareness and all that, we want to see how best they are actually using this. And then, yes, out of all these things that we do, we give comprehensive skill support too. So our monitoring and evaluation team will get to the field and then we'll be doing all this.
So with the evaluation, let's take the first quarter of this year. Based on the work you've done so far, some of the results, can you give us any success stories?
So some of them has been It has been a positive result, if I should say, because before we enter into a community, we first engage the stakeholders. And so they firsthand will get the education, and then they will see how best they can also help in educating these people. And so, yes, I think with our Equi Access project that I spoke about, yes, because the education first went to them, they actually included it in their PTA so that parents will also do. Before, we also came in to educate children, and then we actually selected, let's say, youth advocate that will also be helping. So wherever there are social gatherings, let's say church, assemblies, I don't know, but we have a lot of social gatherings in the community. So wherever they are, we believe, and then with some of the evaluations and monitorings that we've done, yes, our youth advocates are actually doing good, advocating about rights, responsibilities, and all that is needed for successful.
Has there been a situation where maybe one community or district you visited did your education, did all the necessary processes or underwent all of that? Has there been a situation where maybe the child labor rates, maybe we had about 20 children that were involved, and maybe the next time you went for a follow-up, it's just about 5 that are still in there? Have there been situations like that?
Oh yes, quite a number. There's also been situations where you go back and then the number has increased. There's also been situations where you go back, the children that you took out of child labor have even returned to the worst forms of child labor. So that's why the conversation needs to go beyond, like she said, policies and laws. Rather, the work is at the community and the district level. Most of the time, that's where you find my team and I, always out there monitoring. Because in as much as there's child labor in the streets of Accra, it's not as, for lack of a better word, rampant as it is in most of these, in the rural areas. So we have what we call the child labor hotspots. So yes, there are situations where you go and the number of children you identified has reduced. And that's good for us because then we know that, okay, the work we are putting in and the efforts we are putting is working. But then you also go and sometimes the number has increased. Sometimes they are even in the worst forms of it. So it's like she said, a lot of education needs to go around. And I think that one of the key things for the awareness creation and education has to do with parents understanding that it is their responsibility to protect their children. Because I think that sometimes, I remember I went to one of the communities in one of the districts that I do not want to mention, and the woman saw us and said, "Oh, child labor for Mama Biu. Mama Misika, me Mama Baninja Ejumao." And what that said, the message that sends to us was that they think that we are to give them some level of support before they can protect their children.
I mean, that's the attitude of a lot of Ghanaians, actually.
And that's why I said that when it comes to child labor, the reason why the conversation needs to go beyond rooms like this and the work is actually out there is because there's a lot of cultural, acceptance to the situation, to the system, because there's been a lot of interventions. There's been, let's put aside government's LEAP, because LEAP and all of those capitation grants, FQ, school feeding, free SHS, all of these are interventions to ensure that children are in school. Now, I think just about 2 weeks ago, we received some data in some of the communities where we have the hotspots that the children are going to school all right. So there's high school enrollment rate, there's high school retention rate, but the children are still working. So there's always a new strategy by our Gen Zs and Alphas, all of these children, to adapt to changing trends. I remember there was this time that 4 a.m. I got a call from the former head of Department of Social Welfare in Ebuakwa South, and he was telling me that he went for, I think, a walk or a jog, and when he was returning around 4 a.m., he saw a lot of children coming from the bush. So they've beat the system by saying that, okay, if we don't go to school, they'll record that we are absent. So then we'll go and do the work at dawn, but when they come to school, they'll sleep. They will not be able to understand, they will not be able to learn. So it's a conversation that we continuously need to have. It's not just a matter of, like he said, the numbers. It's a matter of the understanding being there, the acceptance that, you know what, this is my child. Yes, I might be poor, I might not have enough, but I do not have to let my child engage in child labor. And I also want to add that one of the things and the reasons why we are so passionate about child labor is not just because of the health aspects that it affects the child. Yes, those things are a fact, but it also, in looking at the country's long-term goal, there will be a deficit in our skilled labor. Because a child who is working today would not be able to learn a skill, learn a trade, go to school. So what is going to happen is that potentially in the next 30 years for Ghana, there will be a lot of deficit in our skilled labor. We might not have enough doctors, we might not have enough journalists, we might not have enough teachers, we might not have enough nurses, because when they were supposed to be in school learning and acquiring those skills, they were out there working.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of, it's not my child, it's somebody's child, so I don't care. But if your child goes up and needs medical assistance or needs an artisan to support or buy something from, and that skill set is not there, then it becomes a problem. So it's a conversation that everybody needs to make it their responsibility. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so now this question is for all of you at this point, and I want to ask about the fact that we have this sociocultural belief where parents see their children as their property. So I'm sure you've come across parents who say, let me use cheap. You know, because at the end of the day, you will leave. I am the one stuck with this child, or this child is stuck with me. It's my responsibility. In this case, how then do you tackle this kind of attitude towards the child or the relationship with the parent?
I guess a lot have been said about engaging parents and making them understand the issues. She mentioned protection of children by parents. That is not the only thing. Children should not be neglected. Children should also be provided for with the necessaries of life. Here we are looking at health, education, shelter, and also protection.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about maintenance, children should be maintained, and they should not provide for themselves, or they shouldn't be the labor for the family. And so when parents are aware that when you bring a child into this world, maintaining that child is your responsibility. And it is for both parents. Many times, a lot of women give reasons that because the father is not providing. But it is the responsibility of both parents to take care of their children. And we need to sink this into a parent to appreciate that if you are not ready to spend your money on a child, then don't give birth. And if you do, then you have a legal responsibility, and also that of guardians, to take care of those children. And you don't make it their responsibility, or you don't also lazy around and ask the children to work for you.
So in that case, as the child is their responsibility and they feel that they can do with the child as they please, would you go beyond educating them and probably suggest that there should be some punitive measures put in place, that the fact that this is your child does not mean you can do as you please with them?
Of course, if we have domestic violence issues, so a child labor issue may stem from a domestic violence issue. And domestic violence, we know, is not only sexual, it can be economic, it can be physical, and all that. Because sometimes even when the children refuse to do the work, they are beaten and they are humiliated in other ways. And so the relationship that exists between, whether it's an employer or it's a parent, we should be able to deal with it. And if they are found culpable, why not? They should be punished. The only problem here is that, like I mentioned, the systems. If a parent is using a child for labor and you don't have the right systems in place to take care of the child, I know there is a jail term of 2 years. Yes. If the parent goes to jail, who takes care of the child? What happens to the child? So we need to tackle these issues in a more holistic manner. And she had mentioned the community child protection committees. Are these committees backed by law?
They are not at the moment. But
yes.
in the children's bill, that is currently, in Parliament, it's going to be backed by law.
Okay.
So it's a structure that was created as one of the strategies to ensure that we have, because you see, if we don't have structures at the basic level, at the initial level to address child labor, like she said, we'll have a structural issue. So at the district, how do I get to know of a child labor case if I don't have people within the communities? Yes. So currently, there's that advocacy that whether it's private sector or government, you are going out to have any project or intervention within any district that has to do with child labor, you should have this system. And the reason why I've been reliably informed that it's been included in the children's bill is because if those structures are not there, and that structure is not just going to solve issues of child labor, all other child protection issues would be addressed at the community level. Then when they are not able to address it, it moves to the district level. Then when the district level is not able to address it, it moves to the regional level. When there's a need for, and this is how we also get data to have interventions like LEAP. So she made a statement about what happens to the child. There are structures like the Department of Social Welfare, where if you are unable, so you see, LEAP came into cushion parents who are not able to, because of poverty, because the fundamental issue all the time is poverty, there's no money. So some of these structures are there too. Yes, it's not exhaustive enough. It's not adequate. That's why we have sometimes the private sector also support. So, I mean, we are not there yet, but then the idea is that we would gradually and progressively get there.
Okay, so...
I was going to add that the community child protection, we should, as if they are being given mandates and given legal mandates, we should also build capacity. Because some of them may not even appreciate the issues they are fighting. And so we should build their capacity and also motivate them in a way. Because as it stands, they are not motivated.
No, they are not.
Yes. And so it becomes a volunteer work. And they don't also have they can't bite. And so it's just advisory. So I don't know what else is going on in the bill or in the act, but we should be able to put in all these so that they are more effective. And if at community levels, they are able to resolve these issues because they are there with them, then we can be making a lot of impact.
Right.
And so, just to add to, once something is put in the law, Parliament agrees and approves, and budget is made for that. So that's one of the reasons why we've been pushing that conversation, because, like she said, it's projects based. Some of these private sector or industry, they support these CCPs financially. But once it becomes, they have the legal backing, it means that governments will also have to allocate some funding or resources to support their activities.
All right. So I was also, just before she came in, it's similar to the question I have to ask, which is that what criteria do these people meet, or do they fall under before they are actually, or what are some of the processes they go through to be selected to become part of these committees?
So these committees, the selection of the CCPCs, the Community Child Protection Committee, is not dependent on those of us that are in Accra. It's dependent on the community members and then the District Child Protection Committee, which they report to. So there's that collaboration at the district level between the government institutions, the members that sit on the DCPC. They go to the community and they ask, we need to create this committee. Who and who want to come up for nomination? And then it's discussed, sometimes even voted for, because it's not that everybody goes and they just go and choose and pick. No, because you need to find people that are influential at that level, who have that level of opinion leaders, that have that level of, okay, when they come and they speak to parents understand. Because like you said, there are people that have that position that it is my child. I do as I please with the child. You need to have people that sit on the CCPCs that when they come to your home, you know that, okay, because that's why we have traditional authorities as members of the CCPCs. We have opinion leaders. Even we have teachers that live in these communities. So it's a whole membership. I think the minimum is 5 and then the maximum is about 12 of influential people within this community. So the selection and then the establishment of that CCPC is done by the community in collaboration with the District Child Protection Committees.
Okay, I wanted to ask something else, which is more in line with the fact that some of these influential people may also secretly be in favor of these child labor things, because like we see the street kids these days, we've been hearing that it is a whole begging kingpin network where these children are made to beg to go and fill the pockets of somebody. So what if there's a case where one of these people or some of these influential people in the community are actually perpetrating this and they're also on the committee? Is there a way you're going to be able to catch these kinds of culprits?
Yes, so I'd say that for streetism, it's entirely different from the structures we have at the community, at the district level in terms of CCPCs. Streetism is a whole network of, it's very interesting the way they run the business. Most of the children are not even Ghanaians.
Yeah, so I was likening it to that in
that
the
you have a
sense
situation
that so let's say in a cocoa farming community, so there's a big cocoa farmer and he's realized that children employees are much cheaper labor. He's on this committee, but he's funding the employment of underage children. In a situation like that, how would you be able to catch him?
So not to say that it's not a situation that can't happen, but it's difficult for a situation like that to happen because of the oversight rule of the District Child Protection Committee at the district level. There are also partners, like she said, we do a lot of capacity building for the CCPCs that exist. And CCPCs members are it's a volunteer service. So nobody who is doing such criminal activity would want to volunteer. So for now, I say that the monitoring or the oversight role of the DCPCs, and also from us here, we also do a lot of monitoring of CCPCs because we need to train them, build their capacity, and they have meetings where they put minutes together and all of that. So the moment you're identified as a member of the CCPC, they have tags, some of them have T-shirts. You are easily identified as somebody who is coming to ensure that somebody is not using their child for child labor. So you probably would have offended a few people. So if you are doing it yourself, they would also report that the same person who has come to my house to say that they will report to me is also doing the same thing. So if I'm going to be very honest, we have not had such situations. I think it's mostly because of the oversight role that the District Child Protection Committees play.
Okay, so we have questions here. This is from Kofi Dazi in Amasama. He says, is there a hotline or reporting system? And how quickly does the department respond to such reports?
Yes, there's a hotline and then you can report. So if you don't want to call the hotline and you want to work, you can go into any of the Labour Department's offices across the country and then report the case. You can equally also go and then report it to Department of Social Welfare. But because we collaborate with a lot of partners, both private and government, you can also go to these institutions and then you can also report to them. But the hotline it's a toll-free number, 0800 600 400, 0800 600 300.
So 0800 600 400,
0800 600 300.
Okay. So 080 600 400 and then 080 600 300. Yes. Okay, so my next question here is from G in Spa in Kumasi. It says, how often does Shraj visit communities or workplaces to proactively identify cases? But Shraj mentioned that they get to be the ones people report to. No?
With the exception of the anti-corruption mandate, where alleged cases of corruption may be investigated, for administrative justice and human rights, we always need an identifiable complainant.
Okay. Right. So this one says...
but for our education, we don't ask for permission.
Okay, so you go out to do the education,
do a
but
lot
not
of education,
to
but not
identify cases. Okay. But do you think maybe moving forward, Shraj should take the initiative to start identifying cases?
That's our mandate. So unless the law change, the law that establishes us change.
Right.
And we've even had a case where we investigated the Popular Nanny case. And at the end of the day, the court threw it out because we didn't have a complainant.
Wow.
So just to answer your question, if you have a labor-related workplace issue, you have to report it to the Labour Department. And Labour Department, one of our core mandates is to go on what we call establishment inspections, to conduct inspections, to make sure that the rights of the workers, the conditions under which the workers are working, is of course up to a certain standard by law. So I think that question was not supposed to have gone to Shraj. It should have come to us. Yes.
Okay.
If you have a complaint, you can also call the same toll-free number 0800 600 400 0800 600 300, and then you can make that complaint, and then there will be a follow-up for you.
All right. Okay. So we have a question here. This is Mrs. Enchibediako in Teshi. She's asking you, Starlight Foundation, that what immediate challenges, like funding, access and community resistance are slowing down your work?
I would say it's because of the mindset and then the notion out there. People actually think NGOs, anytime people want to, make money, that's when they go into the establishment of NGOs. So it's the mindset. But then I would sit here and then say every penny which is donated will go in a very long way to impact lives out there. Yeah, so if the notion out there changes, then we also can work, broadly and then widely.
Okay, so do you face issues like access as well?
Yes, please. Yes,
okay.
Please. So at times with Starlight Foundation, most of our funding comes from outside, not even here on the local level.
Okay, so are there communities you've heard about and tried to visit, but maybe due to the road network or one or two other issues, you were not able to, get there and try to help?
So with community piloting, we do that hand in hand with opinion leaders out there. So once the community has certain characteristics or features that will suit whatever we want to do there, that's when we actually go into it. So we've not had hindrances back.
Okay, so this one is asking, this is Inchibediako again. Which communities are currently your highest risk zones, and what are you doing about that right now?
Okay, so thank you for that question. I think that I wouldn't want to mention communities, not because I don't want to stigmatize, but I'll just do generally the districts. So in our hotspot, some of our hotspot areas are in the Bibiani Ahenya Subekwai district, the Achumampunya district, the Asinsao district, the Upper Dentra district. And we are piloting I would say we've passed the piloting phase. Government of Ghana believes that the way to go is the Child Labor Free Zones project, which is a government-owned and government-led initiative to address issues of child labor. It just basically looks at the geographical area, either a town council or a zonal council, and ensure that the systems and structures are working. Currently, the national assessment team for this project has finished their assessments in Bibiani. They've also done their assessment in 2 zones in Achumampunya, and then 1 zone in Bibiani. So I wouldn't want to mention communities, not because I don't want to stigmatize or say that it's bad. I prefer to mention districts. So these are some of the districts where we are hotspot areas, and then we have the Child Labor Free Zones project there to ensure that we are handling the issues and then addressing the issues head on. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So our time is fast spent, and I want to just jump to some solutions and the way forward for this conversation, even though I will try my best to get my producers to have a part 2 of this because there's so much we need to cover. So coming to Shraj, what is the one biggest change, whether legal, institutional, or cultural, that would make the difference for the children in Ghana right now?
I believe that we should resource our institutions, our protection agencies well. Because all these that we're talking about, if they do not have, they may have the very good policies, good ideas, but if they do not have the resources to implement them, we may not be getting the result. And so resourcing is key. Resource not just in money, but also in staffing.
Right.
And building capacity so that they will be able to have the right people on the ground and have the right funding to be able to do the work.
Okay, thank you so much. So now, if you had to design a genuine and effective Ghana-specific solution to child labor, what would you put together? And this is not something borrowed from any templates. For you yourself, based on the work you've done, what do you think would be one of the best solutions to put together?
Yeah, I think in their submission, they actually said we must work hand in hand. And so one of the questions that you asked, I was actually wanting to suggest that, the thin line between helping and then harm in our communities are blurred.
Right.
Yes, and so it's not often that parents would actually be doing these things out of neglect, but there are moments when economic pressure sets in, they do this. And that makes people, people actually do not want to report these things because it will feel like you're exposing your own family, your own community. Yes, and then there's a trust gap too. There's a trust gap too when it comes to reporting. People actually feel, even if when we report, they are not going to do anything about it. So they will actually choose silence instead of reporting. So when it comes to structures, then the challenge here is a well-funded resource, and then again, let's say coordination, and then how to approach these things. And so when we have all these things coming together, I think the way forward is going to be something positive.
So I just want to add just a little to what he has said. Very well said. But I also want to add that there's a lot of work going on in the child labor space. A lot of work. But there's that, the missing link is the collaboration. There's a lot of coordination going on. But there's a lack in collaboration in terms of industry or private sector and NGO with government. And I'm sure Starlight is doing a lot of interventions, but I have not seen a report from Starlight, which means that there is a gap, which is the coordination gap. There's a lot of collaboration between my department and then Shraj. I get my reports, but I do not get, so I think that generally, not to just say that, of course, Starlight, but generally that collaboration, it's not forthcoming in terms of NGOs and private sector. So I think that that's one way to address the issue, because where government is not, you find that a partner is. And when you give us that data, we can work. And then I think that that collaboration will help ensure that we are eliminating child labor across the country.
All right. Thank you so much. So finally, I'd like to take your single message to every Ghanaian out there watching us. You know, what should they take away from this conversation today?
I will say that children are assets to the nation, and we need to protect them. They have rights that also need to be respected. And so we should allow our children to be children and protect them from any form of harm, including child labor. We should allow them to go to school, gain the knowledge, and build the skills so that they can contribute effectively to our nation in the future. And we shouldn't put them into a child labor situation. Parents must rise up to their responsibility of maintenance and protection of their children. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What about you? One single message you'd give to Ghanaians from Starlight Foundation?
Since Auntie has talked about the individual level, I would want to address my concerns to the government. I mean, child labor persists not because there are no laws here in Ghana, but rather it's because the conditions has not been fully addressed. That's why it's making the laws to be difficult to be enforced. And so if I'm to make a submission, I would say government should actually also look at the families and then invest more in families, and then again invest in education and then empowerment.
Thank you. And finally,
I think they have both said it all, but I just want to add that let's be extremely open-minded about the conversation on child labor. Our children are our future, and without the children, there's no future for Ghana. And for us to ensure that Ghana has a future that is bright, we need to protect our children. So let's all get into this space. Let's take it up as a role and a mandate for each and every one of us to ensure that we are protecting children. Let's be our neighbor's keeper and ensure that we are always looking out for the protection of children and the empowerment of children.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining me here. We had Mrs. Joy Inima Deborah from Shraj, and we had Mr. Obed Sian Osei, and then Ms. Rhoda Linjifua Amini, also from the Labor Department. Mr. Osei was also from Starlight Foundation, and we had this insightful conversation together. I'm hoping for a part 2 very soon, so please make yourselves available. We will have this conversation again very soon, and I would like to say thank you once again. A big thank you to you all for also joining us today. A big thank you to everybody that joined hands to make the show a success. We hope to see you again bright and early on Tuesday morning. Do have an amazing weekend ahead.